Sandra. Okay. If you became your culture's food ambassador, what would be the 3 dishes that you would recommend?
I am a Vietnamese American, so if I were to choose 3 dishes, and I'll probably just choose one. Well, okay, maybe a couple. My first is that I am someone who loves anything rolled up. So whether it is egg rolls or spring rolls or any kind of dish that requires something on a grill and you roll it up with rice paper. I remember when I was little, that was my very first job, was to roll egg rolls at our Bake Belief restaurant for my mom. Like we would take all the food, all the chairs out in our little home, and then we set up tables. And at 6 years old, I was rolling egg rolls so that my mom could sell it to the single Vietnamese refugees that were there without families. So for me, rolling egg rolls was something that I can do, and I can do it perfectly well. If you ever see me do an egg roll, I love spring rolls because you set everything up in a table and you sit together in this very communal. It takes a long time. You pick certain things, everybody kind of whatever they want to pick in their spring rolls, and then they sit, they roll, they dip in the dip, they take a bite, they talk, and then you do it. You could eat that and you could sit there for a good hour or two eating spring rolls. So the communal part of it, it's not like a bowl of pho where you eat and you're basically done in 10 minutes. When you eat a spring roll and you actually roll it yourself, it is, for me, that's why I love it so much. Thank you.
Okay, our next question is for Charles. What food reminds you of family?
Thank you for that, Mr. Table Topics Master. Actually, that first topic reminded me of family. When I was a kid, my favorite food was bologna sandwiches. And I have 2 memories of my bologna sandwiches. One's very good, one's very bad. In the old days, bologna came in these big logs and it was wrapped in plastic, and then they sliced it so there was this ring of plastic around the edge. And me and my brother were in the same bedroom and we had bunk beds, and mine pulled out from underneath his for when we slept. And I'd like to go in and get some bologna out of the refrigerator, go to bed, have my bologna, and then I had that ring of plastic and I just throw it back behind the bed so when my bed got pushed in, it'd cover it up. And that went on for a long time, but I distinctly remember my mom finding all those bologna rings down there. And she really got after me, and I never tried that again. Just a hint though, one thing you can do with those rings that is so much fun, you cut it so it's just one long spaghetti-like string that tastes like bologna, and you give it to your cat, and they'll start to swallow it. They swallow it, swallow it, and right when the very end gets right to their mouth, you go whoop, and the cat just goes like this. It's like, what the heck? So good memories, bad memories about bologna.
Thank you, Charles. For our next question, what is the, let's see, I guess we'll go for Carlos. What is the most exotic or unusual dish you have ever tried, and how did it taste?
What was the most exotic dish and how did it taste? Well, as I recall, I actually did eat fried crickets, if I understood it to be correct as to how it was prepared. And I was really surprised that they tasted pretty good. The frying process pretty well took the cricket out of the crickets and gave me just the whatever was remaining, mostly protein, I guess. And I heard that this was a meal of the region that I was in. So I tried it and it seemed just fine. I wouldn't want to make a whole meal out of fried crickets. I think the crickets would try to jump within me after having been consumed if there were too many of them. So I thought better of that. I think as a snack it worked out just fine, but I can't say I recommend it as a main course. Thank you very much.
Okay, this one will be for Desiree. Okay, if you lost your taste in all flavors except one, what flavor would you like to keep?
If I lost my sense of flavor, what flavor would I want to keep? If I could only keep one. Is spice a flavor? Because I like all things spicy. I don't care what it is. Spice that we have here in New Mexico. I like all spices from all Asian foods, every type of spice possible. If I would not want to lose that. And it's interesting because I was thinking about the question that you asked Deborah about something that she thinks about when her favorite food as a kid. I don't have one necessarily, but I have a really interesting story about my cousin, and she still eats this to this day. It's really bizarre. Somehow she decided she was going to get those packets of like the chicken ramen and crunch them up, put the spice on top of it, and then get a pickle. And she bites the top off the pickle, and then she dips the pickle in the ramen spice noodle mixture, and she thinks it's the most delicious thing ever. And I'm like, how on earth did you even discover that? Like, who thinks to put those flavors together? It's disgusting. And I talked to her on the phone. I hadn't talked to her in a while. I talked to her on the phone over Thanksgiving, and I was like, do you still do that? She's like, oh, yeah, heck yeah, I do that. And I'm like, all right, well, you're a strange kid. Thank you for that question.
Okay, this is for, I think, was it Berlinda? Yeah. Okay. For Berlinda, if you could only eat one type of cuisine for the rest of your life, which one would it be and why?
If I were to eat one cuisine for the rest of my life, which one would it be? I would say it would be the New Mexican food. I like the green chili. That's my favorite compared to the red chili. Every time I travel out of town, I try to get like a burrito. For example, I was in Portland and I was excited. I was like, oh, they have a breakfast burrito, thinking that I'm gonna get something similar to a breakfast burrito here in New Mexico. But when I got it, it was full of rice. Sorry. But rice is okay, but I like brown rice, not white rice. Because white rice turns into sugar. Brown rice takes time. And with my health, I'm always cautious as to what kind of rice I eat. And so I was starving and I had like a long flight and I had to eat something. So, and it was expensive at the airport. I remember it was like $14, $15. So I said, okay, I'll eat it. I ate it. It was disgusting, but I ate it. No chili in it. A little bit of eggs in it too. There was no potatoes. There was no green chili, no bacon, no beans. But I like all New Mexican dish. Thank you for that question. I have one.
This will be for Jesse. Okay. If you were the king of the world, what would you make everyone eat, and what would you ban?
Like, so what would I eat and what would I ban? So that's a difficult question. Obviously, I like pizza and like Italian foods. But I would ban like eating endangered animals, I guess. Like, I know I think, yeah, like different kinds of apes or monkeys, or I don't think anyone eats elephants, but it's or tigers or lions. I don't know if anyone eats those either, but I'm sure there are some endangered animals that people like to eat, and that's why they're endangered. So I think it would be reasonable to make sure that people aren't allowed to eat those. And yeah, so that's so we eat Italian food and ban endangered animals from being eaten. Thank you.
Charlie, yeah. What's your favorite comfort food on a bad day?
Okay, what's my favorite comfort food on a bad day? Well, on a bad day, I don't eat comfort food. I eat bad food. So otherwise, the day wouldn't be that bad if I ate comfort food on a bad day. But I will tell you about the most exotic food I've ever eaten, because I know you're curious about that, and you would have given me that question had you thought of it. Back in the 70s, I was in Egypt, and I was in Egypt for a good long time, and I was down in Luxor, where are still many, many monuments that were built centuries ago, honoring the gods. The tomb of King Tut is down there. And I stayed in a hotel, and it was not a hotel really for tourists. It was a hotel for Egyptian tourists. So it didn't have air conditioning, but you had a fan. And it was kind of the off season. And I bought a Gabala, one of the robes that they wear from one of the stores. I had it fitted, and it was all black, and you would think that it would be really hot. But it was really cool because it's basically like a skirt. And during the course of my being there, I became friends with the mayor of Luxor. And the mayor of Luxor was a wonderful guy, and he took to me, and I really liked him, and he invited me to dinner one evening. It was a very big dinner, and it was out basically by the canal, and at this big table with lots of people, I was seated right next to him, and there were belly dancers, which was absolutely tremendous. Best belly dancers I've seen east of the Mississippi. Probably the best belly dancers I've seen west of the Mississippi as well. So, what do you think we'd had for dinner? We had sheep's head. Sheep's head. Now, I have to tell you, I never had sheep's head before. But I do know some rules of being polite, and I try to practice them, especially when I'm the guest of the mayor. So I ate some of the meat, and it wasn't terrible. It was just I realized a taste that I wasn't accustomed to. But when he pulled out the eyeball from the sheep's head and offered it to me, the only thing I could say was shukran, which means thank you in Arabic. And you don't say no when somebody offers you a gift in that part of the world. You say shukran. Shukran, shukran, shukran. No, shukran. But he insisted. So down it went, and I probably was supposed to chew it. But I couldn't bring myself to that. And I must confess, the next morning, I'm looking down in the bowl, looking for something staring back at me. That was the most exotic meal I ever ate. Thank you.
Okay, Deborah, what was your favorite food as a kid?
Thank you for that question. What was my favorite food as a kid? I think of myself as being a very boring eater. If you ask any of my members of my family, they say that I'm a picky eater. I would disagree. I think there's just a few things that I like to eat. And when I was a kid, I think probably one of my favorite things to eat was pancakes. My mom would always make pancakes on Sunday nights. We'd have breakfast for dinner, and we would watch whatever the Walt Disney movie of the week was. And so I have really fond memories related to pancakes and Sunday night dinners. That was not, it was breakfast instead of dinner. And I can't think of any other foods that I particularly enjoyed as a kid. So thank you for that question.
Ray. Yeah. What food should everyone try at least once in their lives?
Oh yeah, once in their lifetime. Well, a lot of questions were about your favorite food, and having been born in Bolivia, as you know, their national dish can also be a snack. It's called a salteña, S-A-L-T-E-N-A. And it's sort of like a empanada, but it's very liquidy on the inside, kind of like a meat pie. I would definitely recommend that. And I still have memories of my mother and my family making them at home. And it's quite a process because the dough has to be very elastic and even translucent sometimes. Yeah, very, very light. And so you mix, all the in it, which is kind of like a thick soup or a sauce. And then you put it in the salteña, which is really somewhat like a taco. It's circular. But then you fold it over, and then you also have to make little knots, so little nubs that make it stick. And they also put an egg wash on top of it. And then you put it in the oven for, let's say, 40 minutes. And when they come out, they're fantastic. And you got to be careful, get there so much liquid in there. When you take the first bite, it's like once it's spilled, all that liquid inside. So that's one food you should try. And fortunately, in New Mexico, you cannot find it easily. So probably you have to go to Washington, D.C., or maybe some of the South American places in other states. Thank you.